there you go. So, well, thanks again for having me back. I just wanted to introduce myself and introduce this. I think I might have on the last presentation gave a little intro to it or not, but we've actually put it out there, and some people have been using it for like maybe over a month now, and so we've been getting some good results and a lot of different results. So I just wanted to give a little bit more of a more in-depth introduction of what it is, and the entry signals that plot on your chart with audible alerts, and then there's it's calculated, and so you don't have to sit there and stare at a chart of when things are going to happen. It's just all done automatically like algorithms do. Why not use the tools that we have available to us these days? And we have I call it a smart stop logic within. Also, you could use your ATM, which is recommended. There's a lot of people using different ATMs, so there's numbers all over the board depending on their risk tolerance and whatnot. But that's what I'll be talking about today. So, in summary, what is the signal plotter, and then can it trade manually or automatic trades depending on your preference. The signal plotter settings, as far as it's a receiver. The server spits out the signals when they get generated, and then it comes back and it gets on your machine. And then if you opt to have it actually take a trade, it will do that also. Let's show you a little bit on how to download it. It's kind of easy. It's trials and whatnot. Let's go through some questions and answers. But first, who am I? As Rob just mentioned, I'm Steve Tremper. I've been in the fire service for 30 years. I retired in 19. Prior to retiring, maybe 10 years prior to retiring, I started dabbling around in the markets, and I ended in futures after failing with some options and all the other stuff. So I like futures, and it just seemed to kind of be more of a fit. So that's where I've been for quite a while now. So I only trade futures now. And that's pretty much how I came to be. But funny thing is that how the trader chick was talking about indicators. I did the same thing years ago. I just took every single indicator off, and I went down to the bare bones basic, and I said, let's start all over, pretend I don't know anything, and let's just go from the beginning. And in that process, that's how the discipline manager came to be, because I had problems with that. And it seems like every time I have things, I create an algorithm for it, because I'm all about computers and let the tools work for you. So that's how all those came to be. And this is just one more of the bunch. So as I know you've talked about before, but I'll say it again, it's this governmental required disclaimers. You could pause this and read it yourself. I'm not going to sit here and read it to you, but basically the moral of the story is that hypothetical and simulated trade performance are just that, and you can't expect to get the same results in the real world. And that is true, because I could vouch for that one. So in any event, so what is the signal plotter? Well, it's an entry signal issued by the server, as I mentioned, and it comes in. It's an indicator. You have the indicator on your machine, and it receives the signal and responds by drawing a vertical line on the particular price bar that the signal has been generated on. It'll display three horizontal segments. The entry, which is, well, in my case, the default is a black line. You can change the colors, but anyway, the entry line, then you'll have the stop, and then you'll have the target levels of different levels based on algorithms and swings of the current trend that we happen to be in. So they're not all statistic. They're not all static numbers. They definitely are dynamic. And then if it's permitted by you, there's a few things you need to do inside of a Ninja, and allow it to do some automatic trading. But if it's permitted by you and you have it on the account and everything's a go, and you unpause it and everything, it will automatically execute a trade. I would have to say most people are doing that. However, especially at the beginning, you want to kind of test it, so you don't have that on. You just get the signal, you look at your own indicators, your own charts of whatever it is that you happen to be looking at, and if you feel comfortable you go ahead and place the order yourself manually, and you could do that. Or it's a nice verification confirmation if you possibly are already in a trade. Maybe you got in a little earlier, and then you got this going in the same direction, and it just gives you confirmation. If it's going in the opposite direction, might have something to think about. But needless to say, it is all generated based on algorithms. So if that is enabled on the following execution, the start, once it is executed, the stops will automatically adjust to their target, their design target, and there's 5 levels of different targets that you can pick from. Again, it all depends on your risk tolerance. If you're going for bigger runs and maybe trailing or not trailing, or it all depends. Everybody has their own thing out there, and it's hard to say that it's just going to be any one level. So it's based on risk, and you go from there. So here's like just a clean chart of it. There's no indicators on here, and of course you could add as many indicators as you want on here. You could put on different bands and moving averages, etc. On my regular chart that I have, I do put on some moving averages, but for this picture I just kept it clean. So this is really all it is. It's that what you'll get is the version number. You'll have a pause button on top, which will automatically and always default to the pause state. And so if you go in there and you're in the indicator and you're active, then you go in and change some other indicator, and not even related to this one, but just another indicator, and you change a color on something or some sort of setting, and you say, apply it and save it, then when this comes back in after calculating, it's going to be again in the pause state. So you have to kind of be conscious about that. It's that if you haven't seen any trades activated, it's because you're paused. So there's a news button in here that also can pull in the news, and we have it defaulted for 5 minutes. We don't trade before or after the news. So you can set your levels to medium or high, and then from there, as the news is approaching, the default is 5 minutes. I made mine 3 minutes, but to each his own. So in any event, 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever that may be, prior to the news event, and then after the news event, if a signal does come in, it's not going to take it automatically. Just to still get the signal, and then you can decide if you want to take it on your own. But if you're in the automatic state where it's automatically applying the entries for you, then it won't do it at that given time because of the date range. And it'll even show you a note down in the bottom left-hand corner saying, paused or skipped due to news. And if you want to see it, I typically they're off to show the news, but if you do want to see it, you can just click the button. It'll show on the bottom right-hand corner what the news events are. Again, if you have medium selected, it'll show you medium and high. If you have high selected, then it's only going to show you the high. And then you can pick from there. And then, of course, if you want to see historical, so when this first comes on, it doesn't have the historical data. So if you want to see any of the historical trades, you would just hit download signals, and it'll pull in the historical trades where you can take a look at them. But then as it goes in the future, as they come in, they'll populate right on your screen right then and there. And right now, the latest version we have is a little warning of prior to. So you'll get a warning. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll get the actual, if things don't line up and come to fruition, you're not gonna get the actual trade itself, but you get a warning saying, hey, it's things are ripe. And so in any event, so this is the settings area. There's a folder called Tremper. You go in there and you pull in the signal plotter. You could put in your targets and your times. It's defaulted to 35. I've changed, I think it's 33. I've changed mine to 35. I get off a little bit, I stop a little prior to the market closing. You could have second ones on there if you, I don't know, if you're going to be gone in a meeting or something, you could put, between 12 and 1 o'clock, don't trade anything. So you could do that too. Some of the dynamic managements are here. You have the ability to do that. And then here are your 5 levels of your different target area based on prior swings. And then there's the news events I was telling you about. It's 5 minutes prior to or after. It's set for medium. Your alerts, if you do want an alert, I have mine set for 6, but you could change those and put in whatever audio sounds you might have or like. So that way, when you're busy doing whatever you're doing, looking at different charts, you hear this alert go on, you kind of look at your chart and see what's going on. So if a signal does come in, sometimes it will be, you know, like pretty much instantly, and it'll execute the order and you'll be in. And then other times it places the order and waiting for the pullback. It depends on where it is. So it'll sit there, and if it comes back and gets you in on a limit order, then you're in at that level. And if it never comes back and just keeps going without you, it will ultimately cancel if it never gets filled. So that's so it's not going to leave a naked order sitting there for that long of period of time. So latency, we have, because of the fact that we are coming from a server and there is a latency area there. So we've been testing that and we're past that stage, so we feel pretty comfortable on it. But you are able to say if my computer, maybe a poor connection or something, if you do have that and you want to limit it, you could turn that on and say, don't activate signals that are coming in too late and past, you know, so many milliseconds. So then you won't get them at all. And if you don't have that, then and you're running on a slower computer or slower internet connection, or something's going on in the internet, then you're going to get the trade and it might be a little late. So it's kind of a nice backup to have that on there, that you don't want something that's too late to trigger. So the other ones we have, so, oh, did I go backwards? Oh, sorry, gotta go this way, sorry. And then this is page 2 of it. It's just, you know, the same page is going to another level. Then it goes into the account that you could trade from. You want to make sure you're on there. Your ATM strategy, we have NQ1. You could change that. It's looking for an ATM strategy. It doesn't necessarily have to be on your chart or in your chart panel, your chart trader panel, but it does have to be inside and saved as a template. And now I have mine on my chart because I want to see where it's at, so I don't know why you wouldn't, but you do have to have it created. And then you also if you change it, and everybody, there are so many templates out there because everybody is always trying to, you know, depend on conditions and however they run their systems. They're changing their ATM settings. So you'll see in the, you know, in the Skype group, we're always getting, you know, what's you know, what are your settings? Can I see them? And that kind of thing. And they're always sharing advice that way. Of course, all your colors, you can do that. And then in here is how your signals come in. We have your email address or your name that's unique to you, and then you have a token that is given, and so you'll need a token to actually get the signals to be on the same page. So when the signals come in, you'll be the receiver and you'll be able to receive it. So that is an essential part to have. It's only going to be used for NASDAQ. If anybody has any questions on ES, that might be in the future, but right now this is solely NASDAQ, and every market is different. It's not as easy as just taking this and applying it to ES or crude or something. Every market has their own makeup, and it has to be tweaked specifically. So, you know, we talked about it, working on it. I don't have any time for that, but as it stands right now, we're just really trying to crack down on NASDAQ because, you know, everybody likes to trade NASDAQ because it's a fast mover and it gives you a lot of setups, and that's why we're only looking for the better of the, you know, 50% or better probabilities is what we're looking at. And so you're not even going to get the ones that might not set up. As I mentioned earlier, you might get a warning, but it just never goes anywhere. So that came from suggestions that we have during our beta group and whatnot. Everything else is just standard Ninja settings down here. So that's pretty much it for the settings. So this is kind of what it's going to look like. This is an indicator that I have called the status box. So that's not part of Signal Plotter. That's just another indicator I have. You can see I have moving averages on here, and and just give you a little orientation. So here's your vertical bar for a short. You can see your entry was there and your stops are here. There's actually two of them on this chart. The first one came in here with your stop there and your targets, and then the second one came in after that. So if you're in this one already, you're not going to get in this one because you're not flat, unless you have there's something on there for add-ons. But for the most part, I'm not going to be in on this. I got in on the first one, so I'm not going to be in on the second, or vice versa. I got in on the second one. And then your target based on swings and things. So, and these are all based on swings, even your stop. So you can see here that the target just snaps to that. It takes about a bar or a few ticks or whatnot to do its calculation, and then it'll move your ATM. But that's it. It'll just do it the one time. So if your ATM is at whatever ticks it might be, let's say 100 ticks is your ATM, and then it calculates it. It'll snap it down to the red lines down here. Now, if you move it back to your 100 ticks or move it forward, it's not going to do anything after that. So it's just that one-time snap. And the same thing with the targets. It'll put it right where the target is. Now, in this case, I've got target zones on. You can see a little zone here. That's just other indicators that I have, the status box, things like that. But looking through that is here it is. And then you also see some warnings on here as far as adjusting the stop. There's, again, based on algorithm, based on swings, based on things like that, just cautionary things you might want to consider, adjusting your stop. Doesn't mean you have to, but just things are starting to, deteriorate. Now, there's also a switch in there on the settings that if things do deteriorate, it will automatically get you out of a trade. And most recently, I've actually turned that on. I'm actually kind of liking it more because I would rather be out of a trade wishing I was in versus in a trade wishing I was out. So I would just, there's so many, there's too many, there's more trades. So rather than messing with it or say, hey, if things are not going, I have found through the statistics that the trades that go. The very little, MAE, or the maximum adverse excursion that will calculate, because it just goes. And so why mess around with the ones that don't go? I'd rather just get out sooner. But again, personal preference. Everybody has their, there's some people that just turn it on and let it do what it's going to do, and so be it. So again, it's all to each his own. So next one here is basically, as I mentioned earlier, it shows how to adjust the stops, or just giving you a warning about adjusting stops. Here's a long. So this one comes in here, your stop is down here. So it comes down to moving averages, which is, typical NASDAQ. These other lines here are not part of it also. Those are just indicators that I have called support and resistance lines. Again, those are other things that I have on the website too that I've created for myself. So all these here you don't need at all. You can just have a bare naked chart is truly all you need. Now, of course, when a signal comes in, you're not really going to know where things are without having indicators. So you could use whatever indicators you're currently using, whether that be the channels or Fibonacci's, or Bollinger Bands, whatever it might be. You could have all those on, and I would recommend doing that. Let me see what else we have. The other added indicators that I just talked about. So I'm going to go through there. Down here in the bottom left, it talks about receiving signals. You can see you're on, you're eligible. If it says it's paused, it'll tell you if you're paused. It will tell you if you skipped a because of news, it'll say skip because of news. Your latency, I'll give it. Now right here it says NA because there's no signals since I turned this on, but if there was a number there, it would tell you how, what kind of latency you're having as far as if there's any speed issues and whatnot. So again, that's very, very basic chart. Here's a video of it. I just should take it right there, and it chased it up. I don't know if you saw that or not, but it just went up here. It went, chased it up, and I had the target zone on, and it got that far, and it came back on my ATM and kicked me out, which I'm fine with. I'm totally fine with that. And there it goes. So, and you can see here with the status box, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but your account peak balance and your drawdown, your margin, that's really important. You can kind of see here. Let's see if I could do it again. You can see here we're at 23.93, and you can see as soon as we get the completion of that, we max out our target again. Because in this particular $50,000 account, this happens to be an Apex account, but on a $50,000 account, you get $2,500, and so this is all you're going to get to play with. Doesn't matter if you've made more than that, but all you're going to get is $2,500. So that's how that works. But that's pretty much the end of it. Now, what you don't hear on here is the audible. I do have an audible sent on here, but I don't have any sound on here. And then you can see right here, it's not going to take any more. So if another signal came in, you'd say, oh, why didn't it take it? And you look down here and it says, oh, you've reached your target. And you can see here now that that last trade was 589 milliseconds. So that was the speed of it, and that seemed to be okay. We're receiving signals, but we're not going to take it anymore because we've reached our target. And the same thing would hold true if we had a stop. If you had your stop in there and you say, I only want to lose X amount of dollars, then it would stop and say you've hit your drawdown. So that's that. And then the latest thing that we have are the buttons. I'm still personally kind of getting used to those. I know some other people like them and use them. They're still, I don't know, to each his own. So you can see I have my timer set. It's not ready to go yet, or we're off time because it's not within the time window. And it's after, it looks like it's closed. And so these are the latest things we have. There's a whole description of what they all do, but they're just, when you're in a trade, you could, go to break even, or some people manage it differently. And again, emotions sometimes get into way. And so as it gets up to so many, points in your favor, break even or break even plus a little bit, or you can move up your target. I have used that, the stop actually, I'll move this one up because the ATM is pretty close. I think my ATM is pretty good, and I'm pretty comfortable with it. But there are times that, I could see that, you just want to move it up a little bit. So you could just move it up by 4 ticks. So that's available. So that's pretty much about the end of it. So, what it is not, people have asked me is, I want to go to work and I got to get to work, so I'm going to turn it on and come back. And this is not an ATM machine. This is, I think there's nobody out there that will tell you that automated trading is better than manual. Manual is always going to be the best way to trade. But if you're tired like I am of looking at screens, and I've been working on algorithms for years now, because I just can't tell you how many countless hours I have staring at a screen and just not getting things done. As soon as you start looking at an email and replying back, you've missed your trade. You go get a cup of coffee, you've missed your trade. You get a phone call, you missed your trade. It's like, oh, but then you're sitting there waiting and waiting. So I'm just kind of really a big proponent on algorithms, and that's what the computers are for. They're designed to watch things for you, and as soon as things line up the way you want, then do something. And whether it be an audible signal or actual activation, whatever. But you just cannot, you should not just turn it on and go to bed and then wake up in the morning and think you're going to be a millionaire. So these signals are qualified entries, but it's all about intra-trade management options, and that's it. So the trades are only going to take, as I said earlier, about we're at 50% or higher better in probability. So we're only going to take the quality of trades. But once you're in the trade, it doesn't mean that it has to go to its target all the time. Things happen internally, you know, other people trading, and Warren Buffett comes in and buys a freight train, you know, whatever it might be. Things happen intra-trade, and you just can't leave it for an algorithm to know all those nuances that'll happen. So trade management is really it has to be monitored by human decisions. So I just want to emphasize that enough, or I can't emphasize that enough. So how would I get started? Well, it's easy. You can just download the file right from the specific page, and then, you know, we start playing with it. You need to get a token, and I could send you a token. So what you would do is you would get it downloaded on your platform, and you could send me a contact form, which will have your machine ID, your third-party machine ID, or third-party license ID, they call it. So you need your license ID, and then I could send you back a token, and you would put that token in that settings area along with your name, what I mentioned earlier. And once those are in, you're good to go. And they're so you would just go to right here under the tools section, go to the Tremper.com page, and then just go to the tools, and then go to, and here's all these indicators that I've had over the years, but signal plotter is the one we're talking about right now. Since we're here, target zone was the one that had the little flag on top of the target, and then the other one was status box. Talk briefly about that later on. Discipline manager is probably one of the oldest ones, not the oldest. Reversal bars have been, but all these are things that have been built for me. Actually, the discipline manager, I've safe to say that I've kind of gotten a little past that, but there was a time there that I was really, you know, it's needed. It really is. I do have some hedge fund companies that have multiple licenses for run on their algos, which is not a bad thing to do as a, you know, backup. I still have it on some of my accounts, not all of them, but some of my accounts I do have it on there, so it just stops in the event. So you could talk about, you know, you could look into that. There's a little video on there. And then the strategies I have, the first one I had was the ATR projection, that's available for free. There's a couple of these that are for free. I just don't use them. They never got incorporated into Helix, which is another strategy. So there's a few of them. I forget which ones. Volume Sliver, I think, is free, and a couple others. Anyway, so we're talking about the signal plotter though. So you just go into there, and then that just takes you to, you know, the signal plotter page itself, just a little summary of what it is. And here's the file that you're looking for. And that once you get set up, you could actually try it. And there's no restrictions on it. So, I mean, you could actually trade it live, but I would recommend not doing that. I would recommend putting it on Sim, you know, maybe getting involved in our Skype trade group. That's for free. And you could join that just for nothing. That's free just for anybody. We just have a group of traders that are, you know, just doing the same thing together. It's nice to have the camaraderie and be able to kick off some ideas and help, and from there. So in any event, so I would definitely recommend that. And then I would recommend, you know, watching some demos and, you know, going to some troubleshooting, the what ifs, etc. And then some templates that we've shared. And then down here are the notes for version notes. I would definitely recommend that. Make sure you're on the current version, because we are, you know, changing things. I don't want to say regularly all the time, but we're always asking for suggestions. As a matter of fact, the most recent one, when that warning came in just the other day, we had talked about that before, didn't do it, but somebody suggested it'd be nice to have a warning prior to the trade so we can kind of get a heads up. And so there's the latest version has that now on it. And now what that doesn't have is an audible, which I haven't even put on my to-do list yet, but I do want to put it on my to-do list, so when a warning does apply, it'll pop up a little ding or a dong or something, so you can just look at your chart if you're not paying attention to it, because the audible is there for the execution, but it's not there for the warning. So I want to kind of see if I can implement that. So that's all coming. But anytime there's suggestions or things like that, we certainly take them for evaluate them and go from there, because we're certainly want to improve as much as we can. But these are pretty good signals. So, as far as the signals are concerned, there's very little to really change on that. It looks in the higher time frames, it looks at swings, it looks at a whole lot of different algorithms internally to produce the signal. And then once it's verified, then it spits it out to your receiver, and then that's where it goes on your screen. So in any event, once you do download that, go to the contact page over here, and then you just fill out this information. And down below is an area in there for the signal plotter. So you can just check that. You can put a little note in there if you like. But this is where we need the third-party the license ID, and that just goes to NinjaTrader 8. Go to Help, go to third-party licensing, put in the vendor name Tremper, and it has to be like that with the capital T, and then put in your unique ID. Now, I would recommend using, if you already have one already set for, if you maybe have some other indicators, then you don't need to do it again, because it'll just override it. So I would not recommend doing it again. But if this is new to you, I would recommend putting in the machine that you have, like office, laptop, or something to that effect. So I'm gonna mute this here real quick. Sorry. All right, about that. So I would recommend putting in the ID, like HP laptop or office computer, Dell, Commodore 64, something like that. That way inside, otherwise it's just a bunch of numbers, from your third-party license, just a bunch of numbers, but the tail end of it will give you a hyphen, and then it'll give you your unique ID to that. And then this way you'll know kind of, oh yeah, this is the bedroom laptop or whatever. So that's all I need for that. And once you get that going, I'll send you the token and we can get started on there. And this is what I was talking about. This is how you would write it up there for the vendor name. This is a third-party licensing on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. And then you can put in there, Acer 746 or whatever. So getting back to this, so big $64,000 question. How much is it going to cost? Right now, we are offering it at $249 a month, and this is for NASDAQ only. It's a single chart, single token for NASDAQ, and executions can be copied. So if you have a third-party trade copier, you could also put multiple contracts inside the settings if you want to trade more than one. But I would not, if you're using the prop firms, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but if you're using those, I'd recommend not putting NASDAQ with more than one contract on. Anyway, you'll get a 20-day trial period, so you don't have to do anything at all. That way you feel totally comfortable. And that's why I want to do 20, because you have to feel comfortable with it. You'll have some time to play with it over the weekend and maybe watch, or you're more than welcome to come into the trade room and see what's going on. But moral of the story is 20 days is plenty of time to get familiar, talk to some people in the trade room, ask questions, and feel really comfortable with it. And heck, you could stay on sim. You don't even have to trade live. It's not necessary. You have free access to the Skype traders group. We have the free trade room. You can go in there, and I broadcast it on my screen, so you'll be able to see it on the screen. The social hour we have, it's all free, just tech support questions. I kind of geared for that, for any help with that. Just more or less camaraderie. It's all available. It's all on the site for that. But that's not all. So also today's special though is I want to talk about, and this is, we'll go back to the status box. It's usually a $99 annual subscription, but right now with this, you're getting that free. That box that you saw on the chart, because it's relatively new, and I want to get it out there and let people have. There's a lot of people that have it right now currently, but I want to give people the ability to go ahead and I personally think, well, I guess that's why I designed it. I personally think that it's a very valuable tool. And this offer will expire Sunday, so basically in 4 days. I'll give you the week to think about it, whatever, check it out, watch the videos on it. But that's a whole year of status box, and you don't have to worry about it. And so what is the status box real quick? So let's talk a little bit about that. Now, of course, any of the options can be turned off. So if your spouse is in the room, you want to turn off your finances, you could do that. The ATM strategy shows you which one you're running. and it'll show you your account. It'll show your statistics. Realized down here is your realized value, and then unrealized is this value right here if you have it on multiple charts. So you might have, or multiple accounts. You might be trading NASDAQ on one account and ES on another on the same account, but just a different chart. Well, unrealized is going to show you what's running in the background. And I would recommend just one contract for NASDAQ. But needless to say, well, it depends on your account size, of course. And then it'll show you the instrument P&L. So if you have this running on the same account, it'll just separate the instrument. It'll tell you your account peak, which is needed for these prop firms that people are getting. This line was added for all these prop firms that are popping up, and it tells you your available margin, or they call it drawdown, and then of course your realized P&L. So if you go over to under referrals, all these prop firms over the last couple of years have popped up, and there's actually more. This is an old picture, but the best part of that is the competition, and they're always competing for your money, because they want to skim off the top, if you will. So right here is the discount codes, and this is where we have all those listed. So of course these are old, so they're not going to work, but these are all here. But this is very important to read, and this is how P&Ls are calculated. Some companies, and over here I'll say it, they use realized P&L or unrealized P&L. You want to know how they're doing. You have to know how they're calculating it, because if you're using these prop firms as the funding, then they have their strict rules, and you need to know, and you need to set the status box up to match their rules, along with their commissions too. You need to set their commissions in there. And so this is what it's going to look like on a chart. You can move it around, you can change colors, all that business. But anyway, this is what it's going to show you right now. You're flat, you're not going in any direction. Obviously there's no time because you're flat. And then what account you're on. It takes it from the chart trader here over there, if I had it on. And it'll give you the little statistics based on the current trades that you're in, and then right now it's showing I've got 1,659 of my drawdown available margins that I have to play with. And I would recommend when it gets down to about half. Now this is set for a default of a $50,000 account, because that's pretty much the most common. But obviously you could change it for $100,000 accounts or $25,000 accounts, etc. But needless to say, you want to know where it is. And when I would say when you get down to about half of your margin, you need to start taking some smaller targets and just start to build that back up. Because otherwise with NASDAQ, so what they're doing is that it goes up, and then you come on an unrealized. If you're working on an unrealized P&L, it goes up like this, and then it comes down and pops you out. Well, it's taking this as your high, your account peak. It's taking this high. And therefore you got out here. If you're doing a realized P&L, it's going up like this. You come out here, and it takes this number versus when you got in and you basically broke even. And it'll take, okay, so you didn't lose anything. But on an unrealized P&L, it's taking this. So even though you got the zero break even, it's counting the high. So anyway, you have to know. And if you read that, I would definitely recommend reading that little take on down here in this box here on their discount codes. You can actually sign up if you want to get an email. Like I send out emails every time there's somebody new popping in there, so you can get updates on them if you want to do that. But needless to say, I would definitely recommend doing that. And as I said earlier, so you get this one. This is I think that was, maybe it wasn't, but this one here, it's only going to go to 2,500 on a 50. So even though you might have more than that, it's only allowing you to have $2,500 of margin until you've met your goal, and then it changes its calculation in there. So that's what it's doing for you, and it's important to know that, I think, and it's been a game changer for me. I really kind of like it. Well, of course I would say that I designed it, but needless to say, so here is your here it is again. I'll watch this. It's 23.93. You're gonna get in. This is the same video. You're gonna get in, pops it up, and then you see I have my target zone on there. And so I've maxed out my margin. So that's how I would recommend taking smaller targets when you start to. You want to keep up on that. So anyway, I can skip that one. That's really about it. So if anybody, I want to stay on time for Rob and not make anybody mad, but hopefully that'll give you a brief orientation on it. I would recommend to come into the Skype trade group ask questions, because if I'm not there, there's always somebody in there that knows, that have been around a while. And it doesn't even have to be about, this particular thing, just trading in general. There's people trading ES, NASDAQ, crude, you name it, they're in there. And so if you have any questions on, ATMs, or how do I do this, or how do I do that, or what indicators, or does anybody know of an indicator that does this for me? There's always going to be somebody in there that can, answer. It's a good place to have camaraderie of like-minded people. So I would recommend that for sure. And then obviously the trade room is for the morning. Now I know it's been going longer than it was designed to be, like a 9 to noon kind of thing, but I've been kind of letting it go longer, throughout the day. But needless to say, it is available. You just click the button and you're there, and you could just watch my screens. I tried to broadcast them. I know last week I had some technical issues and wasn't, but other people could broadcast their screens too. So if anybody has any questions, I could just stop sharing, and then you could share your screen. We can kind of go over any issues that you have or questions, or see what's going on, or we could do a private chat or breakout. So there's things like that we do, but it's all available to you. It's not like the email a technical support question and then wait for an email back and forth and back and forth. You could actually pick up the chat, or go into the room and actually talk with the microphone, and that's what it's all about. There's also on the page is the chat, which that's what you heard coming in, but I was unavailable, so I don't have a company that answers my chat. So if I'm not available, I'm not gonna answer it, like the one you just heard a little while ago. So I'll answer it later. But needless to say, that's really about it. So if anybody has any questions, I got a few minutes. Other than that, I'll turn it back over to Rob. I'm looking at the chat, and I don't see any.
Don't go to chat, go to questions.
Questions, okay. Oh yes, 13 range. Well, in the back, it is, in the background, it's looking at multiple time frames, but the 13 range is where it's actually getting its signal. So to answer your question, yes, you want to do on a 13 range. So that's kind of a simple one. All right, well, that's pretty much all there is as far as questions, but I'd recommend playing with it. Watch the video, go onto that webpage and watch the video on it. And if there's any questions, reach out to me.
There's a couple others. You can scroll up in the window.
Oh,
one is, what's your trade performance in a live dollar account? Will this work with market replay? I know questions about the automation, but if you want to answer one or two quick.
Let me break it out here. I could break it out. Okay, here it is. All right, so now I'm starting to see it. I'm used to your GoToWebinar's competition. But I'm gonna mention any names. Anyway, so yeah, 13 range. What was the trade performance on a live dollar account? Trade performance is all over the place because everybody's doing their own thing as far as the management. You're more than welcome to go into the room and ask people, and you'll get numbers all over the place. It again, time, when are you trading? You name it, contracts you're trading. It just goes on and on. So it's really hard to do that. What else is there?
One more quick.
Prop firms have live accounts for evals? Which prop firms have live accounts after evals? They all do. All the prop firms have. That's the whole goal, is when you're starting with a company, any one of the companies, then they're going to have you pass the test. That's the eval. And once you pass the eval and whatever the rules are, then you're able to go into a live account. And now sometimes they may be live, like a real obvious live market, and sometimes they might be funding it. But the point of it is, it's considered cash. So when you've met their rules and their drawdowns, you're able to take funds out on the live account. So to answer that question is, which prop firms have live accounts after the eval? They all do, I believe. I could be mistaken, but I think that's what it's all about. So
the way the question was asked, that's what I interpreted it to be as well. But Steve, I want to thank you for being here today. We always love having you on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to eliminate the discretion out of your trading, Mr. Tremper of Tremper.com does have a solution for you, and it is called the Signal Plotter. You can learn more by clicking the link in the chat box or going to www.tremper.com his tools have been a game changer for so many traders struggling with over trading, emotional issues that traders commonly face. And I know that having the room, you can only watch so many charts at a time. Having someone else in a room able to call out an opportunity as it's presenting itself is always helpful. Thank you again, Steve, for making our audience a great offer today and taking the time out of your day to join us. I hope you have a great everything.
Thanks, Ron.
No problem. Be well. And that is going to move